All right, guys, chapter 14, lesson 4, talking about hallucinogens and inhalants. All right, so hallucinogens, you guys. Couple things about this is that one of the things I think about hallucinogens, I always think this is kind of some of the more scary drugs out there. Um, the reason is because of what it does. I mean, obviously, it produces some hallucinogenic thoughts, distorts some moods, and kind of alters senses. Um, and some people will talk to you about the fact that, some of them can be made up from like natural substances such as, peyote cactuses and like mushrooms and something like that. But um, they can also be manufactured, and many of them are. So how does the hallucinogen affect the use? Well, they get their name from the word hallucinate, obviously, which means to have visions. Hallucinogens affect how a user perceives the passage of times. It changes how they see the colors, how they sense motion, and then also hearing different sounds. Um, it's kind of scary to think about like some of that, like how that changes. And so the user can no longer really distinguish between like what is real and what is not real. They're having a hard time with that whole situation. And then that can lead to like really like weird behavior, strange, risky type of behavior. So some examples of some hallucinogenics that are manufactured, LSD and PCP are examples of that. LSD, also known as lysergic acid, which is one of the strongest and most widely abused hallucinogens. Um, like you look at this. This is a dime here, and then what happens is they put them on what's called blotter paper, and just one of these little tiny little stamp looking things is what they put on their tongue, or just one of these little pellets, and just a really tiny amount is all that is needed in order to be able to have a really powerful effect. And the problem with this drug as well is that one, when it's manufactured like that, you really don't know what you're getting. But number two, it often can affect people differently depending on their body chemistry. And so we can't always tell exactly what's going to happen. So, some may experience hallucinations, and others who um, may not, and they just don't know who they are or where they are or anything like that. And it just kind of depends on the drug. So I'm going to show you a quick video on LSD.
LSD, also known as acid, is a psychedelic drug famous for altering your perception and creating hallucinations. But how does it actually work, and what is the effect on your body, and more importantly, your brain? Lysergic acid diethylamide was first synthesized in 1938 from a fungus that grew on rye. In 1943, the inventor Albert Hofmann accidentally touched some to his mouth, got high, and became the first person in the world to learn about the psychedelic properties of LSD. Research on the drug took place in the 50s and 60s, but as recreational use began to spread, psychedelic drugs were made an illegal Schedule I drug in the US, and the research programs were halted. While other drugs are dosed in grams, a single dose of LSD is measured in 1/100,000th of a gram, which is 1/10 the mass of a grain of sand. LSD affects multiple brain receptors such as the dopamine receptors, adrenergic receptors, and glutamate receptors, but most research is on the stimulatory serotonin receptor 5-HT2A. LSD hits the receptor at an unexpected angle, causing it to fold over the LSD, creating a lid. The LSD is then trapped, which makes this receptor continually fire, causing you to hallucinate. Your body responds by sucking the 5-HT2A receptor into the cell in order to degrade the LSD, but this can take up to 12 plus hours to happen, which is why the high can last so long. Recently, LSD research has seen a revival, and using contemporary neuroimaging techniques, researchers found that the drug causes parts of your brain to communicate in unique ways, especially in the visual cortex, potentially explaining the vivid and complex hallucinations. There's also decreased blood flow in the default mode network, correlating to strong changes in consciousness characterized as ego dissolution, described as a feeling where the boundary that separates you from the rest of the world dissolves. Many people report this feeling brings a sense of reconnection with themselves, others, and the natural world. In fact, a study on 20 healthy volunteers receiving 75 micrograms of LSD saw that 2 weeks after being dosed, they scored higher for the traits of optimism and openness, with increased creativity and imagination. This has led researchers to think about LSD as a therapy for patients with death anxiety and life-threatening illnesses. Researchers found that 12 months after treatment, patients reported a reduction in anxiety and a rise in quality of life as the drug helped them restructure their habits and worldview. It is also why the trend of microdosing is emerging, where a person takes 1/10 of a recreational dose of LSD, attempting to skip the hallucinations and instead experience heightened alertness, energy, and creativity. Although LSD is non-addictive and researchers rate it as significantly less dangerous than other drugs like cocaine and heroin, there's still an extreme lack of scientific studies to explain the widespread microdosing trend, and even experienced hallucinogen users will sometimes experience bad trips, producing irrational fears, paranoia, and panic attacks. LSD can also cause flashbacks, where months after the drug is worn off, it can feel as though you're experiencing the effects of the high all over again. In some extreme occasions, people have developed hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, which is like a never-ending trip. Thinking that LSD can lead to psychosis and the risk of suicide are overstated. The 14% of participants in the US National Survey who had done psychedelics in their life had no increased risk of developing psychosis, depression, or suicide attempts. But the new research around LSD's potential positive effects is also very young, so this might not be a trip you want to take. Want to learn more about your brain on drugs? Check out our playlist that covers
All right, so the next drug we're going to talk about is called PCP, also known as angel dust. Um, Phenylcyclidine is the scientific name there, but most people just call it PCP. So those effects are similar. Of the PCP has similar effects to LSD, but not quite as true with the hallucinogenic makeup of it. Usually, PCP guys, people can become really addictive and cause violent and really unpredictable behavior. One of the stories going around is that a guy actually pulled out all of his own teeth because he thought that he was having a cavity. Um, so the last one here we're going to talk about is inhalants, and then inhalants really are anything that you can use that's gonna a type of a substance which is going to produce some fumes. A lot of people use like these household products. Um, Most of them are toxic and they're not even meant to be put into the human body. But people like do really weird things to try to get themselves high. The problem with these is that you can actually die from just huffing small amounts depending on what you're huffing. And so there's really some serious side effects that can come into place. Lots of people die each year because of sniffing or using inhalants. So what happens? Well, people start to abuse them, and it causes the protective coating that surrounds the brain cells called the myelin. And what happens is those brain cells start to die. If damaged, nerve cells may not be able to send messages to other parts of the body. So, like if you damage the part where it tells your body to walk or to talk or to think or to hear, whatever, then what ends up happening is your brain cells don't come back, and you lose that ability to do that. Like I said, too, it also can cause instant death, which is an issue in itself. Um, People have been known to sniff or huff gasoline, which is really poor bad for you. But people sniff like magic markers and that kind of thing. But it's so bad for your brain, it's unbelievable. A lot of times, what these people die from they choke or they suffocate because the part of the brain that becomes you know loses the ability to work is that part of the breathing center that'll help you to remember to do that or to allow you to do it itself. So some of the warning signs behind it: eyes that are red and runny, sores or spots near the mouth, um, breath that smells of like strange chemicals. And you can see like the picture of this guy right here. He's got like gold paint around him. One of the things that's really sad is we see this sometimes in third world countries where kids are suffering from malnutrition and from not being able to have enough food to eat. And so a lot of times they'll huff so that they can stave off the hunger pains, which is really sad when you think about it. They can get their hands on paint or glue or something like that to smell, but they can't get themselves some food. That's a sad situation. All right, so that's our inhalant and hallucinogenic chapter. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'm here in sunny Mexico having a great day. Bye.